Freedom, freedom, freedom over fame. Freedom over cycle stays the same.
Welcome back, bandits. The enemy within, right here at your service. Thank you so much for joining us today. Adrian and I have a information-filled and emotionally charged episode for you today. We're going to be reading the book
Antiracist Baby, which was actually given to us by a friend of ours. It is written by Ibram X. Kendi, and the illustrations are by Ashley Lukaveshki. I think I said that right. I hope I said that right.
It's a hard enunciation, that one.
Mm-hmm. And we'll get into a little bit about the author and the illustrator. But welcome, guys.
Yeah, definitely welcome, because I have a lot of things to say on this one.
Right. I just want to start by collectively asking everyone, how you doing?
Are you guys okay?
Are you okay? Have you been drinking your water? Have you been eating? Have you been checking Instagram on a repeat loop? So we're here with you. And just from the top, I want to acknowledge, I know we're all coming at this from different places. And for some of us, there's a lot of anger and frustration. And I think that's absolutely valid. There's so much on the line. And a lot of us feel like the stakes are incredibly high. Personally, I am still processing all of it. I find myself feeling kind of frozen, honestly. I think I'm not alone in this feeling. It's a mix of shock, uncertainty, and just not knowing how to feel. And maybe you're in that space too, and it feels like you want to be strong and fired up, but part of you also just wants to sit with all of it and breathe. Well, I'm finding myself in that exact same moment right now. So if you're feeling like that, just know you're not alone in that feeling. So today, I'm just going to let myself be in that place of kind of unknown. I don't have all the answers, but I do believe that this community, whether you're listening now in frustration, fear, mix of all of it, has a lot of strength and resilience. And if you're here with us, then you're already part of something that's bigger than just one election result. We're all here because we care deeply about justice, about kindness, and about what the future can look like. And Gina, well, she'll bring a lot of energy and a lot of pushback and a lot of call to action. So I want you to know that we have that with her. But for those of you who need a friend to be with and just sit with in the unknown, hi, I'm here. And for those of you who are just as fired up,
here I am. I'm here for you, because my trauma response is taking action.
So without further ado, we're actually going to read the book to you guys because it's a kid's book. I think you should start.
Okay. But this book is absolutely a children's book geared for children, and I'm 150% for children's books that address these issues early, because I think as soon as we talk about them, the sooner we can start to critically think about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, first page, Antiracist Baby is bred, not born. Antiracist Baby is raised to make society transform.
Babies are taught to be racist or anti-racist. There is no neutrality. Take these 9 steps to make equality a reality.
1. Open your eyes to all skin colors.
2. Use your words to talk about race.
3. Point at policies as the problem, not people.
4. Shout, there's nothing wrong with these people.
5. Celebrate all our differences.
6. Knock down the stacks of cultural blocks.
7. Confess when being racist.
8. Grow to be an anti-racist.
9. Believe we shall overcome racism.
Yay! Woo. So that was the book, and I'm going to get into a little bit about the author because I think this is pretty fucking cool. So Antiracist Baby is by Ibram X. Kendi, And it's actually the same author who wrote How to Be Anti-Racist. Ding, 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 ding. I think we all have heard about that book. I haven't personally read it. It is on my Kindle right now. So it's on my virtual stack of books to read. However, something that I learned is that the author is a historian and a professor at Boston University, and he is the head of the Center for Anti-Racist Research. So his whole career is about educating people of all ages on what it means to disseminate racism. As someone who works within higher education, that is so interesting, so important, and so lacking in fact-based knowledge. We can talk about DEI initiatives, but not everyone knows what that actually looks like. So for someone to be heading the research that goes with this is chef's kiss.
Nice. I think a lot of people forget that there are actually people who make this subject their career.
Yeah, I recently met someone who had done her entire dissertation on how interview questions in a community college setting were innately biased and had racism. That was her entire dissertation. And she said that she knew that that's what it was going to be, and she did not deviate. And it allowed her to not only apply, but also start to interview for different places just so she could experience what that felt like.
That's really cool.
It was fucking awesome. So people do, in the most niche ways, dive into how racism is embedded in our culture. Because although sometimes we're striving for equality in standardizing things, the system's rigged, right? So that standardization is actually making that process innately biased, whether we realize it or not. I really love that we're studying how racism infiltrates in every facet of life.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to look to people who are professionals in their field, right? For the answers that we seek. And I think a lot of the disconnect that we have is the average person. I mean, there are definitely some people out there who own their racism, right? And in some ways, that's respectable to me. Just to, like, I'd rather know who you are up front, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So those people are the easy ones. The people that are the hardest ones are the ones that in their heads, they don't see themselves as racist. So the further they put their head in the sand, the less touchable they are and the less likely they are to look to an expert for more information on that. And the page on the book that I liked the most was the one that said, call out your racism, right?
Right.
As much of an activist as I am, there's still things that I learn every single day because I do have to acknowledge that I'm just a white woman and my experience is so different from your experience, from anybody else's experience that have been more marginalized than myself.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of where the disillusion in this election cycle has come for me and so many people around me. I don't want to be dramatic. I have a flair for that at times, I've been told.
Not by me.
Never by you. Other people who don't know me well have said that. However, I truly did not see this coming. I did not anticipate the amount of red I would see on that map that night. It really took me by surprise. And I lived through 2016 and I lived through that election cycle and I had a really similar feeling then, but this felt different this time. This felt like we had made the mistake once, fell face first, dusted ourselves off, made another mistake with Biden. And however you want to talk about how Kamala got the nomination to be the candidate, irrelevant to me at this point, right? I'm not gonna sit across the table from anyone and dissect why she didn't deserve it or did.
Yeah.
Because I've heard that a few times now already. She didn't deserve it. We should have been able to choose. Yes, absolutely. I get that. Was she everyone's favorite? No, she wasn't. She wasn't my favorite. I came on this podcast and I talked about all the things I did not love about her. But I had enough self-preservation to go, even with those imperfections, I will not choose him. Never. And yet we still made that mistake. And that's what shocks me.
Yeah, well, the first time around, I can understand because people were searching for something new, right? I'm not in an empathetic place. I just want to throw that out there. And I usually am very empathetic. The reason why this felt like a shot to the fucking gut is because we are still feeling the ripple effects on not only the economy, but most of all, human rights from his first term.
Mm-hmm.
We are still set back.
Mm-hmm.
And so this really felt like everybody who voted for him just smiled to my face and stabbed me in my back. Personally, this was very fucking personal to me. And what's really pissing me off is those people that are like, let's come together in unity now, right? Like, let's do that.
Regardless of who your candidate was.
It's time for us to unite and try to push forward together. You're not the one that's going to feel the effects of this. All right? You've been married to the same motherfucking dude for X amount of years. You're not going to have any more kids. You're not going to feel the ripple effects of this decision. First, second, third, fourth. The only time that you might feel it if one of your kids was denied medical care due to the restrictive abortion rights that we now find ourselves in. And everybody that I've talked to has been like, no. Trump didn't do that. He just took it back to the States. Wake the fuck up. We live in the United States of fucking America. It shouldn't be that I live in California and then I cross state lines and I have less fucking rights that I did in California. That's not the United States of America. But for whatever reason, people who voted for him keep wanting to make excuses for his idiocracy, his incompetence, his ignorance. But also they want to make excuses for his intentional decisions. He took it to the states so that he could gain more control over women's bodies. You see people like Elon Musk who's out there preaching, we're going to have a population deficiency in the future. You think it's a fucking coincidence that man thinks that? And then he goes and he's the biggest promoter of the second Trump term. Their agenda is to turn the United States of America into a corporation. And you motherfuckers just got bought out. You sold out the middle class because you weren't fighting for policy, you were just fighting the other side. And that's what really fucks me up, is I took you for being more intelligent this time around. And that was my bad. And you're not going to be the one that's fighting on the ground. You're not going to be the one that's protesting. Guess who it's going to be? It's going to be people like me who've been activists our whole life, who are going to protest, who are joining groups, who are trying to make community. That's going to be like-minded people like us. What you're going to do is you're going to stay in your room, you're going to get your keyboard courage, and you're going to start spouting off what you think are facts online.
Right. And something that I would like to make everyone aware of, in case they were not aware of this, but please know that the Supreme Court and the overturning of Roe v. Wade was not actually them looking at Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court decision was Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization back in 2022, and it impacted the constitutional right to privacy, basically eroded the right of privacy related to personal and intimate decision. So they weren't looking at Roe v. Wade. They were looking at this other case. So in the aftermath of the Dobbs case, several states were able to enact stricter abortion laws, and some have proposed measures that could further limit personal privacy rights. So you're effectively saying, I'm allowing the government access to my intimate, personal, private life. Do you know what kind of door that opened? That opened the door for them to come for your contraception. That opened the door for them to dictate what medications you can take. That opened the door to so many things. And we've read The Handmaid's Tale on this podcast. And if you think for one fucking second that those guys give a shit about you, your body, your rights, just because you voted with them, I will hold your hand as I say this. You're fucking delusional.
Yep.
You're out of your fucking mind. They don't give a shit about you. They never have. This isn't about babies. This isn't about the right to be pro-life. This is 100% about controlling women's bodies, because I'm going to tell you something. We're a fucking threat.
We're 100% a threat right now. Always have been, but especially right now.
Women have made so much progress in this country. The statistics are that of single homeowners, women have outnumbered men.
We're less likely to live at home with our parents.
Right.
In our 20s.
So whether you're living in Montana, whether you're living in fucking Orange County, California, whether you're living in Connecticut, I don't give a shit. Whatever illusion, whatever bubble you're in, and you think that you're safe because it doesn't affect you right here, right now, you're out of your fucking mind. One last thing, the Dobbs decision has also prompted debate about the future of other rights, such as same-sex marriage. So when someone is telling you that they're scared, it's because the writing is on the wall. This was about the right to privacy, and we just fucking lost it. And we put this man back into office who already stacked the Supreme Court in his favor enough to do something like that. But Gina is absolutely right. We're going to be out there and we're going to be fighting, because we're not just fighting for her and I, we're fighting for absolutely everyone who can't do it for themselves. Because right now, someone is listening. Right now, someone is listening from a state and they're fucking scared. And I just want you to know, I'm so sorry. And you're not alone.
And it's so funny that all of that comes from the party that claims that they want less government, less control, more freedom, right? And yet they're stripping you of your freedoms.
The carpet has been rolled out to roll back protections that we have fought for decades. And I really want to tell anyone who justified sitting this election out, I'm so disappointed.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that because we didn't learn from Hillary. Huh? We didn't learn from her, from that experience. So quickly we forget. I'm not a dramatic person for the most part. I like to be jokingly dramatic.
She's not.
But for the most part.
Just like me.
Yeah, exactly. We're two even-keeled humans.
Even-keeled.
But here's what I will tell you. We woke up at 4 a.m. to see the results of that election. We both separately looked it up on our phones. And in that moment, I felt like I couldn't keep my family safe. I don't know whether or not I need to rush and marry Adri as fast as I can while I can, or whether putting ourselves and our names on a registry where we're recognizable as a couple will at some point put us under fire. Because let's face it, the part of the conservative party right now that was just elected are the most extreme. And guess what? An interracial lesbian couple is not what they want America to look like. That's not. It just isn't. So yeah, I'm I'm 100.
We're pretty cute though.
I mean, we're cute, but they don't give a shit because they're mostly closeted homosexuals themselves, and they just project their hate.
Okay, I know this is not the point of this podcast, and I know that I'm being funny when I say that, but do you really think that they're mostly closeted? Because
I totally do.
I've literally, American Beauty, it lives rent-free in my head. That the fucking bag in the wind, you know?
No, I completely do. I think the most dangerous people in the United States of America are hyper-religious, hyper-conservative white men. Because they have all the power and none of the consequences. And a lot of those guys, case after case, they're catching them in some weird sexual compromising situation. And they're committing some sort of a crime. And they still want to force their shit on us. And all the while, they're letting pastors sexually assault kids.
Yeah. The irony of it aside, and the finger pointing of it aside, I'm just amazed at how we lack the ability to learn from our mistakes, and how it feels like the country as a whole lacks critical thinking.
Mm.
I am so shocked.
Well, touching on that, they they want us to lack critical thinking, right? Because that's why
Department of Education.
that's why they're going after the Department of Education.
Right.
Essentially, the Department of Education is the department that goes around and standardizes what we're teaching, right? Curriculums, behavior, things like that. And some people have issues with critical race theory. But for everybody who doesn't understand what that means, every state can teach exactly what they want, which means
they can bring prayer back to school.
They can bring back pretty much any agenda that they want, and they can just infuse that into the curriculum without any regulation. They're not going to know our actual history. They're not going to know, not only did we have slaves, but we treated them in such a disgusting manner. We ate people.
I can't stress this enough. This terrifies me to my absolute core. As it is, we are lacking critical thinking in this country. Here's where I verge on wanting to be sympathetic to people's conditioning. And also, I want to hold them accountable for their lack of personal development, we'll say, right? Because all of us have access to all information at the tip of our fingers. So I find it really hard to make excuses for people when they don't seek this information. This is how we end up with people who still love the Confederate flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or still reenact the Civil War.
That they lost.
Fucking
weird.
And again, and I also want to reemphasize, I grew up in Southern California who just normalized this down to realizing that one of my favorite cheap movies that I just watch on repeat whenever I'm sad is Sweet Home Alabama. Okay? Don't ask me why. I love that fucking movie.
That movie has so many problems.
It's so bad.
It's pretty problematic.
I love Gilmore Girls, but it normalizes this culture of nostalgia for what once was, where really it's romanticizing this time period where people really suffered, right? Because the flip side of the Sweet Home Alabama people is the color purple, right? That's the flip side of it. So as it is, we're lacking in this frontal lobal development in this country. And to remove the standardization of the Department of Education, to remove some sort of understanding of how we can teach our children moving forward what mistakes we've made and how to prevent them in the future. Just like Nazi Germany. I mean, not to be extreme, but really that's what it is. We're trying to avoid the mistakes of the past to be a better society moving forward. And yet we're stripping that knowledge away and only giving true propaganda. And I know that the other argument is that liberal agendas are propaganda in their own right. And I can understand how someone who has not ever embedded themselves in learning anything outside of themselves can think that. However, when you ask most people what critical race theory is, they can't tell you. So they know they don't like it. They know that it's bad. They know that it's a liberal agenda. But what is it?
So here's why this frustrates me so much. I was an independent voter. I've always been completely like, fuck the system, fuck the government. They're trying to divide us. There's never been a time that I've been associated with one side or the other because I feel like putting yourself in that box automatically creates division, right? But when this man comes along, they have a history of racism. They have a history of sexual assault. They can't formulate a sentence that makes sense. They make America look like a joke. He speaks in front of the rest of the world leaders and they laugh at him. They laugh at us because we elected him.
Right.
Their policies are archaic and rolling back our rights. And you can only measure the greatness of a nation by how its most vulnerable group is treated. And let me tell you, we fail. We failed. I just really hoped we were all smart enough to go, just not that guy. And I know that it's in the title, Make America Great Again, right? One can argue that America has never been great because we've always, always, always treated our most vulnerable groups like shit. So as to where it might have been great once upon a time for a plantation owner, once upon a time for a white guy in the 50s who could live on a single income, who could own a house, who could own a car, support his family. And that was his dream, right? And that's what he got to actualize. Why don't you talk to the Black people who were fighting for their rights during that same civil rights movement, who were getting assaulted by the police because they just wanted equality? I feel like I'm screaming into the void because this man was endorsed by the KKK. I know we keep singing that fucking song, but you voted for the same fucking party that the KKK wants into office. Why do you think that is? Because he's going to carry out their agenda. Wake the fuck up.
Right. He's endorsed by the KKK. And to the 56%, near and dear to my heart, Latino men. I don't do this often, okay? I'm going to talk straight to you. You pick me motherfuckers. Your proximity to whiteness does not make you white. Te ven el nopal en la frente. I've never been more fucking disappointed in my own people than I was when I saw that. I saw Black women, Black men, you showed the fuck up. 92% of Black women voted for Kamala. We disappointed our own people. We voted against our own best interest because you thought that in some way that's going to save you from a man who will use you and discard you without a second thought to it.
And he will deport you. Like that's 150% in the works right now already.
I will never forget this. It's a part of the blanket of shock, frustration, disappointment that I feel is looking at those numbers and realizing that my people voted against their own best interests. What sense of self-preservation do you fucking have?
Well, Puerto Rico is just a garbage island, right?
Right.
So
No, but like
no, but like
that's
what they said at
that's
Madison.
what they said.
And in front of with their whole chest. With their whole chest they said it, but you don't think that that's serious?
You thought that was a joke.
When people
when you laugh along with these racist ass fucking jokes, it doesn't make you in on it.
Let me tell you this right now, as somebody who is white and who has been raised around racism, these people don't give a fuck about you.
I want to remind people that post Great Depression and when the economy was absolutely garbage, around 2 million people of Mexican descent, including U.S. citizens and lawful residents, were forcibly deported or pressed to leave the United States because they were blamed for the economic downturn of the American economy. We've always been the scapegoat, and I'm talking to all Mexicans right now. Stock market be damned. They blamed you motherfuckers. They blamed me motherfuckers. I mean, I wasn't around, but whatever.
In theory.
Many were rounded up by immigration officials, sometimes without due process, and sent to Mexico in misguided attempt to free up jobs for white Americans. So any person saying, I voted with my friend Tom, because Tom convinced me that the economy sucks and my groceries are expensive and I can't afford my rent and I can't do this and I can't do that. And you know what? Tom made a good point that sure, Trump said some shit here and there that I didn't like, but it doesn't matter because he's going to fix the economy.
He's going to fix you.
He's not going to fix you. He's going to get rid of you.
That's what he's considering fixing.
Right? Because we will always be the scapegoat. Because for people who will not look at themselves, not reassess themselves, not figure out what's actually wrong, they always need someone else to blame. And it's not going to be themselves, right? They're not going to look at themselves. They're not going to fix the policies. They're not going to look at the fact that he gave tax cuts to people who are making over $360,000 a year, which statistically is not most Americans, right? So if you think that this, no, it's not.
It's like
it's
a
not.
very small percentage of Americans.
So if you think that this is going to fix your bottom line, it's not. And regardless of that, I do want to say this, and I have to say this. If you thought you were standing on business by voting Trump because you thought the economy would get better, you're just telling me that eggs being a little bit cheaper was worth human and civil rights. This is broader. This is to everyone who voted for him.
Honestly,
that means that you don't give a shit about any woman in your life.
Legit. It's probably not even going to be Adrian and myself who feel it first. You know who's going to feel it first is the most marginalized group in the United States. It's going to be Black women. If you want to really know what it's like to live in this country, ask a Black woman and see what the ripple effects are of what happens when racist policy gets thrown at them. We already know that they have the highest mortality rates when they need medical care, right? We already know that. And that's the fucking frustrating point. Before I start digging into actual policy, because you guys voted on vibes, right? Like, that's what you did. You went, hey, country is not exactly what I want right now. Because honestly, when we dig down into the numbers, you guys voted on vibes. And Gen Z, fuck you. And I mean this mostly for Gen Z men. These are the kids that are growing up on Andrew Tate. You didn't show up for us. We have, as millennials, proven that we are better than you.
I wouldn't go so far.
I would. And that showed up in the polls. Because Gen Zers literally...
I had so much hope.
Gen Z women, statistically, they did what they could. Gen Z men, if you feel like you don't have a spot at the table, you're just not trying to progress. And that goes for men across the board. Progress with us. Raise your standards for yourself. I had one gentleman in a comment section be like, hey, well, all I am is a meal ticket. Don't come to me with that bullshit.
Honestly, just be better. I'm so tired for you. The rhetoric it's played out. It's exhausting to listen to you.
Women we've literally had to pick ourselves up from the mud. We have been terrorized since the beginning of humanity. And the fact that we're here at a tipping point of equality, we're still not there. Let's make that very fucking clear. There's still a slew of inequality. A white guy is more likely to succeed than a woman. And we see that in CEOs. We see that in equal pay. We see that in job opportunities. Now we are closing that gap, right? That's happening. But the closer we close that gap, the more you motherfuckers don't want to meet us in the middle.
Right.
I don't have sympathy for you. Grow with us so that go to therapy. Learn shit. You know that saying where it's like women mature faster than men? Mm-hmm. And that's widely accepted. Mm-hmm. Why aren't we looking at that?
I think there are a lot of millennial moms out there who are really trying. I've watched it firsthand, from people that I know, and they're really trying to make their sons emotionally intelligent. But I think the generations before us did not have that advantage, I'll say. And so, yeah, when I hear a man say something along the lines of, I'm only a meal ticket, wow, sir, you're really limiting yourself. Because we could, as women, easily roll over and say, I'm just an orifice.
Right.
What else do
I'm just a uterus.
I'm just a pretty face. I'm just a uterus. I'm just, oh no. But we didn't. We realized that they weren't going to take us seriously. So we took ourselves seriously. We invested in ourselves. We invested in our education. We fought for the right to have a credit card, own property, go to college, vote, have bodily autonomy. We fought for all of that. So
recently, by the way,
perhaps they've just had it a little too easy and maybe they need to reassess what they're bringing to the table. Because if the only thing you bring to the table is a paycheck, you are very lacking in personality, depth, and interest. That is not a societal problem that has been imposed on you. That is a self-imposed limitation.
Make yourself somebody that somebody would want to marry and have kids with. Make somebody feel safe. Make somebody feel seen. Make yourself a part of society that's helping the world and not taking it back 6 steps. If you come to me with that victim mindset bullshit, I'm going to say, get the fuck out of here every time. Because you know what? You're a disgrace to actual victims. You've got every advantage at this point in time. Nobody's taking that away from you. More rights for everybody does not mean less rights for you.
Ugh, say it again, please.
More rights for everyone doesn't mean less rights for you. So why don't you stop listening to guys like Andrew Tate? Why don't you stop listening to guys like, who's the guy who was just out there? Your Body, My Choice. Nick Fuentes. Stop listening to these motherfuckers. They're not going to get you laid. Let's be really clear.
Who's the other one that I really love? Ben Shapiro.
Oh, God.
Listen, I mean, here's the thing. You want to listen to them? Go right ahead. Because even if you don't think that this is going to affect you, it's going to affect you. And I'm so sad for the people who are arrogant and thinking that this was a win. I'm so sad for the people who think that this is going to make the country better. And I'm so sad for what the history books are going to write about you later on in time, because this is a dark moment in history. It has nothing to do with me loving Kamala so much that I wanted her to win. It has everything to do with the human right fight that is ahead of us, and that I'm not going to back down from, and that I know Gina's not going to back down from. And I know that there are millions of Americans that are not going to back down from that. And at the end of that, I just hope that people are reflective enough to go like, shit, I fucked up.
I have less empathy for all of you right now. I am processing and I'm trying to fucking find it. I really am. I'm trying so fucking hard. Every moment I'm fighting to find empathy, and I'll get there. But right now I'm enraged. I'm super upset at the Latinas that have been in my comment section trying to justify their choices. I'm disappointed in the people in my life who say that they love me and then stab me in the back with their political choices. And then they look at me in my face and say, well, we shouldn't have to tell you who we vote for. I would never ask that. Or we have to be friends now. Or let's come together, et cetera, et cetera. I might have had those conversations with you 5 years ago. Some people have even said, I don't talk about politics with anybody but my husband. Well, you're in a fucking echo chamber then. If you really wanted to make an educated decision, why didn't you reach out to the people in your life that might have a different opinion than you? If you wanted to make an educated decision, why didn't you have those tough conversations? I'll tell you why. Because you didn't want to be told that you may or may not be wrong. And to the people in my life who didn't even have a conversation with me about it, who didn't want to see my point of view, who wanted to bury their head in the sand, and who somehow think that that is justifiable because everybody should have the right to vote in whatever way they want without consequences. Again, you're not going to feel those consequences. So that's easy for you to say. If I try to take your rights away, I talk shit about you, and then I tell you it's justifiable because none of your business, I'm not taking that ever again. Talk to me, stand on business. Talk to people who are actually having experiences that are marginalized. Talk to people who don't look like you. Be better is what I'm saying. You disappoint me, all of you. You've disappointed me. You tell me that you voted for this guy because you don't think that he's a part of the 2025 agenda, right? So he's just appointed 2 of the writers of Project 2025. Just appointed 2 of them immediately right after he was elected. So just today, I found out that Stephen Miller is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, a writer of Project 2025. The next one's going to be Tom Homan.
Homan joined the Heritage Foundation, which fucking we won't even get into it, in February of 2022 and became a contributor to its Project 2025, which proposes mass arrests, detentions, and deportation of undocumented immigrants across the nation.
And that's the chapters that he helped write. Deporting 1 million undocumented immigrants annually would cost about $88 billion per year, totaling in $352 billion over 4 years. So
it would be expensive. Hellman plans on using the Alien and Seditions Act of 1798. So we're really reaching for how we're going to make this happen.
Always a good sign.
And the Sedition Act of 1798 criminalized false and malicious statements about the federal government. And who is to decide what is false and malicious?
The Party of Freedom, obviously. Yeah, so that's $352 billion over the next 4 years because we do not have the infrastructure to do this right now. But we also need to talk about what that's going to do to the labor market because I think people are under the impression that it's going to open up more jobs, right? But in reality, we don't raise our children to do the jobs that these immigrants are doing. So it's going to cause a strain on our economy. Undocumented immigrants do contribute to tax revenues through payroll and sales taxes. So that their absence would decrease federal and state tax collections.
It wows me how many people don't know that illegal immigrants contribute to taxes.
I think
it shocks me every time.
They just think everyone gets paid under the table, right?
Why would they think that?
Ignorance.
Okay.
And and racism, right? Because it's really easy to blame some external villainized third party, right? These people that's not me, that they're trying to take over and they're hurting us and they're criminals, right? Because that's what our now president-elect likes to tell you. Let's talk about transgender rights. Trump already pledged to rescind federal policies that prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. He aims to ban gender-affirming care for minors nationwide and removing federal funding from hospitals providing such care.
I would also like to clarify, because I know that people will hear gender-affirming care and be really triggered and go, they're literally changing people's genders. Gender-affirming care can be something as simple as using the correct pronouns. It can be therapy, talk therapy, not hormone therapy, talk therapy. It means mental health support for kids who are either figuring out if they're transitioning or are transitioning.
Just let people do what they want with their own bodies. Let's be fucking serious about that. So now, healthcare access, right? For some reason, there's a lot of people out there who think that healthcare is not a human right. The Trump administration previously allowed for religious exemptions that could enable healthcare providers to deny services to LGBTQ individuals. When you become a doctor, you have a moral obligation to help anyone within your means, regardless of whether or not they're gay, straight, whatever. If you start putting in prejudices, bias, things like that within the healthcare system, people will die. Trump's advocated for stricter voter ID laws, right? And that's going to disproportionately affect minority communities, and that's the plan. Let's make that very clear. They want to have ultimate control over the vote and where it goes. Most likely, they're going to appeal the Affordable Care Act, which could lead to loss in coverage, especially for low-income and middle-class Americans who rely on ACA exchanges. So, law and order policies. This approach has historically led to greater policing in minority neighborhoods specifically, contributing to disproportionate arrests, incarcerations, and police violence toward Black and Latino individuals. It's also going to take away a lot of police accountability. There's going to be very little support for wage increases and worker protections. Okay, so Trump is opposed raising the federal minimum wage.
I also would like to remind everyone that Trump is notoriously anti-union. So he's not really in it for the little guy. He's actually appointed business-friendly officials to the National Labor Relations Board, and that agency is responsible for enforcing U.S. labor law. So just so you know.
Environmental policies, he's going to be devastating. He's already pursued rollbacks on environmental regulations. It's the rollback of clean air and water regulations. Also, something that I would say would directly affect a lot of people, it's rolled back the WOTUS rule, which expanded protection for streams, rivers, and wetlands under the Clean Water Act. So we've got Joe Biden, and let me be very clear. We've talked about it on this podcast before. There's a lot of things about Joe Biden that I completely disagree with. But here's what he did for the economy, and here's where it stands right now. GDP growth rates went from 5.7% in 2021 to 2.6% in 2022. This recovery was bolstered by the federal stimulus measures and increased consumer spending. The unemployment rate declined steadily, reaching 3.5% by mid-2023. As of November 2024, U.S. inflation rate stands at 3.2%, a decrease from peak rates observed in 2022. Right now, if we compare that to the G7, which are the rest of the strong economies in the world, Canada's at a 3.3%, France is at 4.3%, Italy 5.9%, Germany 6.2%, United Kingdom 6.4%. We're actually doing way better than most other of the G7s, right? The inflation that you're feeling is contributed to a lot of factors, but one of the main ones is corporate greed. If you don't know by now, Trump's proposal for tariff pose risks of higher consumer pricing. When we're talking about policy, when we're talking about things like that going forward, let's just all brace ourselves for what's coming in. To the groups out there who are going to feel the effects of it the most, I'm sorry. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to us today. Thanks for letting us share space and time with you.
I want you to remember that it's okay to not have everything figured out right now. It's okay to acknowledge where you're at. It's okay to be confused, scared, or frustrated. But that doesn't mean that we stay silent, and that doesn't mean that we stay down. You could be an activist in your small circle of friends and family. You could protest. You could post on social media. You can do so many things to make your voice heard and make your presence on this planet count. So whatever form of activism you take, and if that means that you show up 100% as yourself every day and give it everything you got, you being on this planet is a stand. Whatever your version of taking a stand is, do that. And show up for yourself and show up for the people that you love. We're so thankful to have this space to be our safe space for getting what we need to get off our chest. And we're so thankful for anyone who's made it this far and who has listened to all the episodes, which a few of you are out there. Thank you so much. We love you so much. You're not alone.
We've made it through before. We'll make it through again. All right. Just keep the people who make you feel safe around you. And we're here for you. No matter who you are, no matter where you are. We love you.
Bye.
Bye.